Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I already see everybody in the comments section, so excited to see you all here. It is episode 10 of the Raw Intuition Health Show. So thank you guys for being here. Today we have an outstanding guest for you. We've got Dr. Will Tuttle joining us to talk about his new book that's going to be coming out in the next few months called Food for Freedom. And so I'm really excited for this book. I loved his other book, The World Peace Diet. If you haven't read this one, I highly recommend getting this one as well. Life-changing book. So definitely check it out. So we're going to talk about his new book, Food for Freedom, and how food impacts the level of freedom that we all experience. I know I've had some, just crazy revelations and awakenings from my past life and how really lacking freedom I was experiencing. And so I'm gonna share some of these things with Dr. Tuttle, and he can expand upon those and talk. I'm sure a lot of it's going to relate to his book. So let's get Dr. Tuttle in here. Oops, there we go. Hey, how are you, Dr. Tuttle?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
All right, thank you. Okay, so as you guys know, we do the topic discussion, which I'm gonna let Dr. Tuttle speak most of this time because I want to let him speak about his book and all the new things he has going on. But I'm gonna intersperse some of my questions and ideas for him to expand upon. But just so you guys know, as every week, we have a free giveaway for somebody that asks a question in the Q&A section at the end of the show. I'm giving away a copy of my latest book, 5-Star Salad Revolution, and an ebook. So I'll email that to you if you're selected as the winner. And Dr. Tuttle has generously offered to give a free audio book of The World Peace Diet. So thank you so much, Dr. Tuttle, for offering that to somebody that asked a question.
Absolutely. Yes. My honor.
All right. Great. So yeah, let's get started here. So what made you want to write another book, and why did you decide on food for freedom as the subject?
Right. Yeah. The World Peace Diet, I wrote that book to be evergreen in a sense. I mean, it talks about universal principles that are true 10,000 years ago and today, and will still be true 10,000 years and in the future, and which we are unaware of for the most part, or at least we're maybe aware of them, but we're not following them. And these universal principles, I think when we understand them more deeply, especially as they relate to our interrelationships, not only with each other, but especially with animals and our earth, and the routine mistreatment of animals for food and other products, it really creates, I think, within us a very empowering understanding of how we can transform our lives and how we can help be part of the solution to the problems on this earth rather than just simply being part of the problem. And a lot of it has to do, really, like I said, with the cultural indoctrination, the official stories, the official narratives about food and about our relationship with animals and nature and between men and women. It's all interconnected, and how basically a very powerful plutocratic class has been able to gradually treat human beings the same way we treat cows and pigs and chickens, basically as livestock. So the World Peace Diet, it is it's a solution, basically, I think, to our problems. It lays the foundation for a world where peace and freedom and justice and equality are possible, but it requires us to liberate animals. We're never going to have health and freedom if we're going to insist on imprisoning animals and then eating their flesh and dairy products and eggs, not only because those concentrate a lot of toxins, but really the attitudes that are required to do that on a mass scale, like we're doing, or even on a small scale. It's the same thing. I own you, I can do with you whatever I want. I'm going to impregnate you, and then I'm going to steal your babies and kill your babies, and I'm going to keep doing that. I mean, it's a sexual abuse, killing, imprisoning really, when you look at it carefully, it's actually satanic. I mean, what we see as Satanism is harming others for my own benefit and having no qualms about it, right? I mean, just
Yeah.
that's what we're doing. I mean, it's really off the charts, but we are so used to it because we're born into it that we don't realize it. So that book stands on its own, and it's really the foundation of, I think, a world where we can actually have a positive future. But I felt the need for this book, Food for Freedom, to take it the next step to show how, especially over the last 3 years, what we've been seeing. I've been warning about this for 30 years. I've been saying if we're going to insist on exploiting animals, on microchipping them, on tracking them, on force medicating them, all these things, and breaking up their families, we're going to see the same thing happening to us. I mean, why? Because the number one principle in all the world wisdom traditions is whatever you sow, so shall you reap. I mean, we know that if we plant carrots, we're not going to get celery or broccoli. We're going to get carrots. And if we're going to insist on continuing to sow the seeds of dominating and exploiting animals and stealing their health and stealing their purposes, what makes us think that we can magically live a free, happy, healthy life when that we're just destroying that for other beings who have interests that are to them as important to them as our interests are to us? So this is a huge blind spot in our society. It's massive blind spot. It's Carl Jung talked about it as a shadow, psychological shadow. And the larger and more devastating a shadow is, the more invisible it is. That's the irony of it. You'd think you could see it. It'd be so obvious, but the bigger it is, the more it's like, we don't see that. It's not, I don't know where it is. So anyway, now we can really see it happening. So I started, I knew, I mean, you were probably the same way, but I knew as soon, back in 2019, I started hearing rumblings about a pandemic. I was already thinking, this is a scam. And then as soon as they started their ridiculous thing, Madeline and I were both knew this is another one of their false flags to imprison humanity. And then when they came out with a PCR test, I became very early on aware of the work of Carrie Mullis, who actually invented the PCR test and who said very clearly, you can never use this to diagnose anything. Right. It's not a diagnostic tool. It's for a completely different kind of thing. And I read his book, and he talks about how he invented this, the PCR test. And then I found out that the WHO is using that as the gold standard to determine whether or not people have COVID. And all these people are saying, oh, I got COVID. How do you know you have COVID? Oh, I got the test. It said I had COVID. I mean, it was such an obvious scam. And I thought, nobody's going to fall for this. This is so ridiculous. And yet everybody. And then I started hearing that people were wearing masks. They said for people to wear masks. And I thought, well, and I saw these pictures of people wearing masks in China and in Europe, and I thought, oh, Americans will never do that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Nobody in the United States would be that, And then, and we're kind of living out in the country. We're not in a city or even a suburb. We're just out there. But once a week we go into the little town where we get our it's in one store. We get our groceries and we get our hardware in the same store, And we went into that store and they were all wearing masks. I was like, oh my gosh. So I didn't realize that my beloved fellow citizens were sitting in front of the television, just drinking in lie upon lie upon lie and believing it from the pharmaceutical industry. Yeah. And then I wrote a few things on Facebook about how ridiculous it was. We should all get together and party and just ignore the whole thing. I couldn't believe it. All the entire vegan community attacked me. Yes. Like, I'm totally crazy, irresponsible person for saying we should ignore this whole thing. And then I realized the whole vegan community, for the most part, bought into it. So I felt really disturbed, and I have very intelligent conversations about these kinds of things. I realized I got nowhere. I mean, it wouldn't go anywhere. They looked at me like I was some kind of not having any critical thinking. They said, I don't have critical thinking skills. I mean, and these are people, I mean, quite honestly, I taught college courses in epistemology. I mean, I used to teach college, and that's the branch of philosophy that studies how do you know what you think is true is actually true. I used to teach college courses in epistemology, and for quite a few years, critical thinking, all these things. And I have a PhD from Berkeley, where I took courses in quantitative and qualitative methods of research. And so I know how scientific research is done, and I understand. And so maybe that was why I knew it was a big scam, because I know, from studying this carefully, you can construct science and do research to prove anything at all. And the way corporations have invaded academia and the way corporations have invaded governmental agencies, I understood all that. And I realized most people are completely oblivious. They have no idea how the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry and the petroleum industry and the bankers in the background have taken control over the agencies that we rely on, like the CDC and the FDA and the HHS and all these. And I also understood how the CIA and DARPA and the military also behind a lot of the things that we're seeing on the internet and using the internet basically as a surveillance tool and as a censorship tool and as a control tool. And so I was aware of these things, and I thought most people must be more or less aware of that. I mean, we're not that stupid. We know that, and especially vegans, because the whole idea in veganism is we want to liberate animals. We want freedom for animals. And we know, everyone knows, that the pharmaceutical industry just tortures millions of animals in their products. And I talked about in the World Peace Diet how there's over 10,000 drugs and chemicals that the pharmaceutical and the chemical, these are two sister industries, that they use on animals. The animals, the cows and pigs and chickens and factory farm fish that people are eating, antibiotics. I mean, like 75% of the antibiotics are used on these animals. They make massive profits on animals that are drugged on a massive scale, hormones, all kinds of things. And then people eat that stuff and they get diabetes and liver disease and kidney disease and they need heart medications and all this stuff. So the pharmaceutical industry requires animal agriculture for its profits. And profits directly and indirectly and tortures animals. So how could vegans ever trust the pharmaceutical industry? That's the number one enemy of veganism. It's the number one enemy of the earth and the environment and animals. The pharmaceutical industry is based on the most hideous torture and killing and poisoning of the earth. And so I thought, no way vegans are going to believe big, Pfizer and Moderna and these companies and go along. And yet I saw, like, even the Vegan Society of London recommended that everyone get vaccinated. And I always, every year, spoke at the Veg Fest in San Francisco, the Veg Fest in Santa Rosa, the Veg Fest in Sacramento, because I live, in Northern California here. Yeah. None of them would allow me to even speak. In San Francisco, they said, well, you are recommending against vaccines, but if people don't get vaccinated, then they won't be healthy and we won't be able to spread the vegan message anymore, or something like that. I mean, can you believe it? I mean, that's like saying, if you don't eat dairy, then you're not going to be healthy and you won't be able to spread the vegan message anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, these vaccines are like totally filled with animal products. They're tested on animals. They're animal. They're abuse of animals. And you need to take the abuse of animals so you can talk against the abuse of animals. That's kind of the logic of the fear. The thing is, fear just destroys people's wisdom. I realized that. And so what the media was doing was this nonstop fear porn, and working to kind of make us fight with each other too, as part of it, and divide. It's kind of this divide and conquer thing. And then I realized also it's a very sophisticated kind of a military, sort of, they call it fifth generation, a military intelligence operation, warfare, where instead of winning a war by attacking with physically. You win the war by attacking mentally. You attack the minds, and the actual enemy is the people. I mean, that's actually what it is. It's like the bankers. The thing is, we have to understand this. And in the research I did for Food for Freedom, I just did the math. It's pretty obvious that there's about 8 to 10,000 people who are controlling the world. When you look at it, I mean, there's if you just look at the number of people, roughly say 8,000 people who are the most wealthy and powerful bankers, the heads of the large corporations, the heads of all of the major universities, the heads of the main media conglomerates, the military, and this is worldwide. We're talking about worldwide, the military, the intelligence communities, the main religious communities. I mean, these people, they know each other. They all know each other. They go to the World Economic Forum meetings. They go to the Council on Foreign Relations meetings and the Bilderberg meetings and all the United Nations. All these, they party together. They know each other, and they're incredibly wealthy. Plutocrats. Their wealth is directly translatable into power, because when you have wealth, you can buy media. And when you buy media, you buy the narrative. And when you buy the narrative, you buy the story that people are telling themselves. And so 8,000 people, that is 1/10,000th of 1% of the human population. 1/10,000th of 1% of the human population controls the narrative that the other massive amount of humans all believe. We all believe it because it goes through the educational system, they own academia, they own government, they own media, they own Hollywood, music. All the musicians, all the actors, they all got jabbed, they all went along, they're all paid off. That's the thing. And so it's easy for this 1/10,000th of 1% to then pay the 1%, which is about 8 million people, who they're the sort of lower and middle management and upper management of all these corporations and governmental, they get paid very well, and they just do what they're told, and they make a lot of money. And then the 99%, here we are. and the thing is, human beings, like all mammals, we have a sense of fairness that's deep. It's like, it's grounded. If someone gives something to me, I feel obligated to give something back to them. This is something we know. We feel this. It's at the deepest level of all mammals. So the only way you can have a situation of gross unfairness, injustice, like we have 1/10,000th of 1% controlling everybody. Right now, 1% of the population has more wealth, has twice as much wealth as everybody else. That's how gross the inequality is. The only way that can be maintained is through deception. That's the only way. We have to deceive that 1/10,000th of 1% has to deceive everybody else in some way to make it think that it's good. It's good. It's nothing wrong with this. This is fine. This is, I mean, we're glad. We got, everything's great. We have technology. We have, we have, everything's fine, and so that's what's happening. And we don't see how we are being treated more and more like livestock, and we're having our freedom taken away. Really, the way it happens on dairy, like little calves are born on a dairy, and it's the basic narrative is, I own you and I own your calf, and I'm going to inject your calf with these injections, whether you like it or not. And I actually heard during the pandemic, this woman was arguing. There was a video of it with hospital administrators. She was pregnant, and she was going to give birth in this hospital. And the hospital administrator said to her, look, as long as the baby's inside of you, it's your baby. But when it comes out, it's not your baby anymore.
Wow.
She said it directly. That's it. Once it comes out, it's not yours. Don't think it. And that's the basic mentality on a dairy. It's the basic mentality everywhere. You better, and they have actual doctors whose job it is to make sure that parents are following all the protocols with their children. And if they're not, they'll take the kids away. They'll make them do it. And so this is what happens on a dairy. I mean, it's factory farming of human beings. And yet, so there has to be a narrative of fear to get us to think, but if we don't, it would be terrible. We'd all get sick. And that's a big lie. So in this book, Food for Freedom, I uncover the multiple levels of the narrative. It's a big book. It's actually longer than the World Peace Diet because there's so much to really understand, and the way the narrative of animal agriculture feeds into our fear of nature, which feeds into the germ theory. Oh, there's germs, there's bacteria, we're afraid. Instead of naturally feeling like when we're in harmony with animals and we're eating a plant-based diet, especially an organic, whole, healthy plant-based diet, we feel a sense of abundance and harmony with the earth, with our food. We're growing our own food. We're working, like we have a garden here. We have 76 now. We're up to 76 trees we've planted. Wow. Basically fruit trees, lots of, right now we're just harvesting a fantastic harvest of walnuts and persimmons. And so we planted these, and so we've been doing this for 10 years, 11 years actually, and the trees are getting big enough that we're getting really a lot of fruit. And we also have veggie, we have 6 raised beds of vegetables. We're getting lots of cucumbers and squashes and tomatoes and all this other stuff and greens. And so we're out here working, and it's beautiful to see how with love, the earth loves us back. I don't have to stab these animals and kick them and rape them and steal them. We can live this way. And so when we do that, we have, instead of the germ theory, we're attracted to something more like the terrain theory, which is that basically our health is a reflection of our consciousness, basically, and our relationship with nature, the quality of the terrain of our physical body. So the problem really is, and I go into this in the book, historically, when Rockefeller gets so wealthy through petroleum, he was very savvy. I'm not sure how he got these ideas, but he realized that he could make more money by refining petroleum into chemicals and creating petrochemicals, and then taking control of the medical industry, because the medical industry back 120 years ago, it was wide open. There was a lot of people who were doing homeopathy, who were doing natural healing, who were doing herbs, chiropractic, all kinds of different things. And he was able, through the Flexner Report, to basically say that the only scientific, he kind of co-opted science, are petrochemicals, and they refine the petrochemicals into pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals are just petroleum that have been refined not once but twice, and they're poison. Just like petrochemicals are poison. And so the more they can poison us, either through petrochemicals or through pharmaceuticals, the more our health deteriorates. The more our health deteriorates, the more we are dependent on them for more pharmaceuticals. And the more our health deteriorates, the easier we are to control. Their worst fear is people like me who haven't been to a doctor in 50 years, who haven't been to a pharmacy in 50 years, who is not afraid of them. When we're healthy and we're vibrant and we're thinking for ourselves, then we're not easily controllable. It's like wild animals. Wild animals are very hard to control. We have this garden, and we put up a nylon fence in the very beginning to keep the deer out, because they would come right in and eat everything. And it worked perfectly. The deer never came in. But one day a deer got in through somehow a gate or something. And when she got in, she realized she was trapped, and she destroyed our fence. Oh, no. She just broke it down, and I realized, the worst thing you can do to a wild, free living animal is to try to confine their body. Yes. So, but what we do is we just have these animals born into captivity. They're born right into slavery. And so they don't know any different. So they just sit there, and it's very hard to liberate those animals. You take them, they don't even want to get out. They don't know anything else. That's happening to us. We're having, our children are being born into computer games and this whole matrix of control. Yep. That I wasn't born into. I feel so grateful. I'm 70 now. I can't believe it. The time flies by, and I just feel like we have to realize that we are free, sovereign beings. We're in a society, but it's important for us to maintain our sovereignty, our freedom of expression, our freedom of bodily autonomy, our freedom to assemble, and religion, and all these things are critical. If we don't have that, we can't live our lives. We become slaves. We become exploited, just like cows and pigs. Right now, there are chickens living freely in the jungles of Southeast Asia. They're flying around in the trees. They're living like they did for millions of years, and they're free, and they're fulfilling their destinies and their hormonal changes and their family structures and all that stuff. And same with pigs. There's pigs, wild pigs, right out in the wilderness out here, living their lives. And there are ducks and geese, and there are fish, and all these animals. The only animals that are not freely living out in nature are cows. And the last free living wild cow was killed just about like 300 years ago in Poland. But up until then, they were living free. But now they're when you look at these, like we've been to these farms, these factory farms, or any farm where a poor animal, they're stuck in a cage. They're stuck in some kind of a place. They're not living their lives how they did. And it's a tragedy. And the thing we have to understand is only slaves would actually do that to animals. We have to be slaves ourselves to tolerate living in a society with millions, billions, really, when you consider marine animals, of animals enslaved. It's really, and actually trillions when you get to marine animals, I mean, that we're killing. So that kind of massive enslavement of other living beings, it turns us basically into slaves. And I've seen it. People say, well, I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, we have a few chickens and we get their eggs. I mean, they're happy. Well, nothing wrong with that. I mean, we take care of them. There's nothing wrong with that. Their eggs are healthy. I mean, we love them. I mean, it's much better. Otherwise they'd be out in nature. They might get attacked by wild coyotes or who knows what. And that's a slave talking. I mean, if we can't see that you got a bunch of females with no males, you have stolen their sovereignty, you steal their eggs, you steal their purposes, you think that that's good. I mean, people said the same thing about, in slavery. All these black people, they'd be running around like a bunch of, wild animals in Africa. We're giving them an education. We're taking care of them. I mean, we look at that and we think how dark, how like racist it was. But it's the same thing when we're doing it now with these animals. We don't see it because we're born into this blindness. And so the whole idea really is a positive, is that we don't need to do this, right? There's no nutrients. Here I am, 43, almost 44 years now, since 1980. I haven't eaten any animal foods. I'm doing fine, probably a lot better than anybody else eating animal foods. And so this, and I'm not the only one. Madeline's the same way, my wife, and there's literally millions of people who are long-term vegans who are doing great. And we're not, and some people say, well, you're just unique, you're different from everybody else. We're not, we have the same basic physiology. I don't have a different digestive system and endocrine system than anybody else. I mean, right. So it's just this programming. People are so afraid to be different. We want to comply and be like everybody else. We're so tribal. And, I go into that quite a bit in the new book. So the new book is basically has 3 parts. The first part kind of lays out the thing. The second part goes into it more deeply and all of the, like what masking really does to us. And some of the other toxic narratives, like the depopulation agenda, this whole idea that there's too many people. No, how can we say there's too many people? We don't know. I mean, that's ridiculous to say that. They're trying to kill off. They're trying to cull the herd. We have to really be aware of that. The whole climate change narrative, that we we can't travel anymore because of carbon. like carbon is some kind of terrible thing. Right. And so, all these, and then the third part is the positive part, which I talk about the 6 main ways that we can thrive and be healthy. So the third part is really just all the things we can do through meditation, through relationships, through nutrition, through creativity and intuition and music and all these different things that we can actually cultivate in our lives so our health is great. So the title of the book is Food for Freedom: Reclaiming Our Health and Rescuing Our World. And that's the main thing. We can reclaim health once we understand what's really happening here and not be so gullible and believe the official stories. And we can rescue our world, because the trajectory we're going is a trajectory of slavery and worse even. I mean, because the kind of slavery that we're inflicting on animals is really severe. And some people say, well, people these people in concentration camps, they're still able to find some meaning because of they have that inner freedom to do that, even in a concentration camp. And that's true, but the kind of thing we see coming, if you really, not to be negative, but really the kind of concentration camp that the globalists have in mind for us, if you're born into slavery where you don't even know anything else,
Yeah.
there's no chance to even connect with meaning. I mean, I think it's really, we're not fooling around here. We really need to absolutely never comply with any of this stuff, because if we do, it's going in that direction. They have, with the technology today of surveillance and the agenda to microchip or to have everyone trackable through a central bank digital currency, where you can't participate economically unless you're getting vaccinated or whatever. Everything could be easily controlled with the kind of global 5G system that they rolled out when nobody was looking during. I can't believe it. I mean, we didn't travel for a few months in 2020. We came back here. I was doing this tour, and the last two events they canceled on us. We didn't want to cancel them. It was March, I think, and we had events in Southern California and San Jose, and they were the first people locked down. We couldn't do our talk. And we said, come on. I mean, but then, so we came back home here to up north in Lake County. And then we went out and do a tour in November, December to Florida, where things were much better. But we noticed all these antennas just magically went up everywhere. These 5G antennas, these strange looking things. And so this infrastructure has been put into place, and it really requires us to reject it, because otherwise it's called a panopticon. A panopticon is a prison where one or two people can oversee hundreds of people, or thousands, or even tens of thousands of people. That's the kind of thing that the technology, we think, we keep getting told that technology is our friend. Mm-hmm. And in some ways it is, but man, the more research I do, the more I see that for the most part, the technology is being weaponized against us. Yeah. And we have to understand that and not embrace these things with our eyes closed. We better really be mindful of these things. So there's a lot more we can unpack about all this, but those are the main ideas. Yeah.
Wow. That is a book I'll definitely be buying. I mean, I think, I align with your message, I think, more than anybody. You speak so much truth and so clearly and easy to understand. And like you said, yeah, they're weaponizing, technology as well as science, as well as the food, as well, everything is being basically weaponized against us. And yeah, if we don't stand up against that, it's not gonna be good. So, as how do you, and I've got some other questions, but how do you stay positive with all the things that that are going on? I know there's a lot of people out there that they're unaware of a lot of it. They're kind of wearing rose-colored glasses about the whole situation. For the people that are aware or that are just becoming aware, what advice do you have for people that to keep hope or stay positive, or how to make a difference?
Great question. Thanks, Matt. I have to say, I've been a vegan for 43 years. There, in a certain way, there's no way to avoid excruciating pain in taking back the curtain and looking at what we do to animals on factory farms or on even little small farms. People say factory farms. It's any farm. I mean, any farm, you're imprisoning and killing and betraying and horribly, and these slaughterhouses, the unbelievable violence that is committed. And so I pulled back the curtain and I saw that. And I've been for the last few years, I've been pulling back the curtain and seeing the violence. I mean, I'll just mention it, but we don't have to talk about it. But the trafficking of children, the sexual abuse of children, this whole adrenochrome thing. I mean, we're seeing the torturing and killing of animals and human beings on a massive scale. So there's no way on one level to be smiling and happy about everything on planet Earth, right? It's really a lot of terrible darkness. And we have to understand that it is these, in many ways, this 1/10,000th of 1% that is engaging in this on a massive scale, on terribly satanic, hideously violent, abusive things to humans. That's part of their thing. So I have no, I don't hold back from myself. I'm willing to look at this, but I'm very positive. Essentially, I'm very positive because I guess of my meditation practice. When earlier in my life, I just right after college, I left home and I went on a spiritual pilgrimage with my brother, and we had no money. We just walked. We thought we were going to walk to California with nothing, and so I learned. I learned all kind. I mean, we stayed in jails and rescue missions. I learned how to dumpster dive. I learned, I learned how to not have anything and somehow survive. For a long time, we just survived, and not only survived, we thrived. I mean, it was like what Jesus said: "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else shall be added unto you." If we focus on the spiritual awakening, and that's the most important thing. This world, in many ways, is a dream. It's an illusion. It's actually an illusion. It's arising in our consciousness. It's really a mirror of our own mind. And what we are, and it's hard to say this to people, I mean, to all of us, when we live in a society that teaches us the opposite of this from the time we're little kids. We're taught that we're just an object, a physical thing, this body, like this thing that was born and will die, and we have to protect it, and we have to get what we want for it, and we have to keep away what we don't want. So we're in a constant battle to try to get enough money and get enough relationships and get enough love and keep away all the bad things. Everyone is fighting with each other because there's not enough to go around, and you have to understand that whole thing is an illusion. What we are is not this body. What we are is the infinite consciousness that's eternal, that is functioning for a few short decades through this vehicle. I remember, and my brother, we were just 20, I was 20, he was 20, I think I was just turned 22. We were walking and we were contemplating this all the time. And I remember, just as an example, one time we walked into this little church in West Virginia somewhere in the Bible Belt. And those little towns, they're very suspicious of anybody coming into their town back in 1975, way back then. And we went into this church to meditate, and we went into the back, we walked through, and then behind the altar, there was this door, and back there was the Sunday school rooms. And we meditated, and we went to sleep, actually. We were tired, we slept, we woke up, and it was like 7 o'clock or something in the evening, and the whole church was full of people, and they were having a service. And we were like, oh no, if they discover us back here, they'll probably throw us in jail. I mean, who knows what'll happen? So we were kind of concerned, what are we going to do? Because we can't just stay here. They'll find us. There's no way out. And then I said to Ed, wait a minute, we don't have to worry. We're not these bodies. There's nothing to worry about. I mean, they can't hurt us. We're not these bodies. They can't hurt us. And then he said, yeah, you're right. I almost forgot. So we thought, we're not these bodies. So we just opened the door. We walked out. And I remember I had such a feeling of we're eternal consciousness, and that transforms everything. They looked at us and they were like, oh, these angels they're coming through, And they said, oh, you guys, yeah, we were waiting for you, yeah, come on, sit down, sing with us, it's a great, it just shifts the energy when we're afraid and we think we're this body and we have to then everybody contracts and we're all contracted. When you just come with an open heart and know, look, our race, our gender, our story, that's nothing. That's total illusion. We are infinite eternal consciousness, all of us, one being living through many forms. That's what's happening. So whatever it is, the suffering we're going through, when we leave this body, it's like it never happened. It's like when we wake up, I'm in a dream. It happens all the time. I'm in this dream. It's so real. I can see it. I can feel it. And then I wake up. It's like, oh yeah, that was a dream. It's a dream. It is a dream. We have to understand that totally. Doesn't mean that we don't take it seriously while we're in it and we don't have compassion for other beings and not cause them suffering. because there is reality. But we also have to understand that what we are is what makes all of this possible. We're not the little actor. We're the witness of the action. And so every day, I meditate, every day. I mean, that's the most important thing. And so coming back into silence and then living our life out of silence. And when we understand that about ourselves, then we can see it in others. And so then we're not trying to we don't limit them to just this enemy or this obstacle or whatever. We see that, well, they're wounded. Everybody's wounded. When someone's wounded, you don't kick them and spit on them. You say, wow, you're wounded. I'll try to help you. So that's the basic feeling I have. There's this great story actually in the Taoist tradition that I think in some ways sums it all up. It's very brief. It's just, there's a guy and he's out on a lake and he's in a boat and it's a beautiful day and it's a little breeze and he says, oh, I'm just going to lay down. So he lays down in his boat and he's looking up at the clouds and the blue sky and he's so relaxed and just really happy. And all of a sudden, bam, some other boat just slams into him and he's like, what the heck? And he's furious. It's like, God, doesn't somebody know what they're doing? And he sits up and he's ready to fight. And this boat that just slammed into him, there's no one in it. It's empty. It was just the wind just blew it into him. So instead of fighting, he starts laughing. It's an empty boat. It's always an empty boat. That's what we have to understand. When someone like slams into us and we think, oh, you do, it's an empty boat. We're all driven by currents of programming, of cultural wounding. We're born, our parents are hitting us, beating us, we're yelled at, so we yell at other people. Don't take it personally. It's an empty boat. It's all empty boats. And so once we understand that, instead of fighting and trying to change people, we see, all right, we see the best in them. That's the best way to change anybody, is just see the best in them. But we can't do that if we don't see it in ourselves. So we have to do the inner work. And that's the thing. And the other thing is to understand that our life is very short. It's so brief. We're here. I mean, I remember back when I was in my 25, I took this course in Chinese from this woman from China, and she was teaching us Chinese and I was learning the language. And I remember she said, if you ever go to China and you try to act like you know something, like you're an authority on something, and if you're not at least 60 years old, everybody's going to laugh at you, because if you're not 60, you don't know anything. It's a very traditional society, and they believe in this Confucian, you honor the elders and you don't, when you're young, you just don't know anything. And I remember when I was 25 thinking, when I'm 60, that's never going to happen. That's so far away. It's like impossible. I was like, and now I actually went to China a few years ago and I said, you have to listen to me because I am 60. But that was like, like a few minutes later, I'm 60. It flies by. So the whole idea is every day is precious. And even though I cannot change the outer world. The outer world, the dream is manifesting, but I always have power over my response to it. See, that's the great, joyful, positive message. I can't change the world. I mean, I can plant seeds that can perhaps bring positive change, but the whole idea is I can always change my response. I can choose how to respond to what's happening. And that's real freedom. Freedom is taking responsibility for the quality of our responses. What I'm going to be eating, what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to live my life, the kind of thoughts I'm having. That's what we bring with us. And we have to understand, we're taught that we're like this object that was born and will die in a meaningless universe that just came about by a big bang that had no meaning. I mean, that is a philosophy for slaves. You have to understand that whole thing. Yeah. If you want to enslave people, you teach them that kind of thing. Like we live in this random universe where just by random banging in of molecules and gases, somehow we have eyeballs and we have, these complex systems, and we have compassion, we have creativity, we have music. I mean, anyway, the fact that they actually teach that and people actually kind of go, yeah, that's evolution. I mean, you got to be kidding me. It's like such an idiotic, pathetic, ridiculous slave story. Yeah. And people actually get PhDs and all and walk, and honor the white coated people, the priests who preach this kind of slave mentality of meaninglessness. If you want to enslave people, you teach them that, and then they're always afraid and they're trying to get something, and this is all there is. Oh, but once you understand your consciousness, and this is one life of many, and you're going to be, how your next incarnation is going to depend on this. You always have this possibility of learning and growing, and even more importantly, of unlearning and letting
Right.
go and coming back to your true nature, which is always present. So it's a tremendously positive situation we're in. We're here to learn, to help others, we're at a really critical time. And the people who we see as enemies, those are our teachers. They're like creating situations for us. Okay, how do we respond to this now? How do we creatively, it's really a challenge. Cool. Okay, what do we do? And I think that we can always find a positive way, and not to take things personally, and what they want, and kind of in the short term, is for us to feel that way, to feel like, oh, we have no power.
Yeah.
They have all the money, they have all the power, they control everything, and we might as well give up. I mean, don't ever go there. That's ridiculous. A human being is so beautiful and has such incredible potential for wisdom and power and awareness and creating positive change in our world. One individual. I remember I was born in Concord, Massachusetts, and I didn't read Thoreau till I got to college, but I remember reading. I learned to swim in Walden Pond. I mean, that's where I grew up, right there. And I remember Thoreau, when he wrote in his essay of civil disobedience, he said, "One person who's awake can stop the entire machinery of society." It's like, and he's right. He's totally right. If one person who's awake has tremendous power. So that's up to each one of us. Each one of us has that capacity. So we shouldn't look to other people to make changes. We can ourselves embody that and do the best we can, each one of us, to be that in our own unique way.
Yeah. Wow. Great. Great stuff. That's powerful. And I actually, before the show, I didn't know how much I was gonna, go over my stuff. But the three things that I wrote down for how food created freedom in my life was one, what you just said is, it showed me when I started eating healthy and living healthy, it showed me that it freed me from that thinking that one person was insignificant. I'm just one person. I can't change everything. It freed me
Right,
from
right,
that mentality.
right,
Another thing that you've touched on here is the illusion of authority and that experts know what's best for me.
right.
Relying on outside sources to tell me what's best for me in my life. And like you said, it's great to get, advice
Yeah,
and wisdom from others, but you really got to touch into your intuition to really find the right way. And then also that health isn't just a random chance, right? Like if I would have listened to authority, I would still be taking my asthma medication. I would still have eczema and depression and all these things. So yeah, just the food, when you get the food right, it frees your mind from so much of that slavery mentality, and it
right.
shows you how powerful you really are. So I think that's right in alignment with everything you just said.
Yeah, I really want to touch on that. A couple of things, because there's this whole story in the vegan movement. I think it's a little less strong in the raw vegan movement, but in the
Mhm.
vegan movement, which is where I've mainly been in, that we're vegan for the animals and for the earth. For our health also, but you really have a lot of control over your health. And I've had quite a few vegans really get angry with me or criticize me very strongly and say, Will Tuttle, he says how he's always healthy and never gets sick and doesn't go to the doctor and doesn't take any pharmaceutical drugs. But most vegans are not like that. Most of us are humble, and we realize that we need to go to the doctor. We need to take we're not different. We're going to get sick, and that's part of life. And he's really dangerous, giving this idea that if you go vegan, you're going to be healthy all the time. And to me, it's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we are called to take responsibility for our health.
Yeah.
And these so-called vegans who are sick all the time, quite on, not to criticize them, but are they really taking response? I mean, they're not doing what I'm doing. They're not going swimming in cold water every day. They're not doing Tai Chi and Qigong every day. They're not meditating for 2 hours every day. They're not eating only organic, whole, plant-based foods only, like never ever eating non-organic foods. I mean, Madeline is like really on it. We don't eat foods that are not organic. I mean, we need to stop being victims and really see that we have tremendous power to be healthy. And and then if we care about animals, we should be healthy. Who wants to be a vegan if a bunch of sick vegans running around saying, well, yeah, we got to take drugs too, like everybody else.
Yeah.
That's really irresponsible. If you care about animals and you care about generations, you care about hungry people, you want to have people think that veganism is a great thing, then we should be radiantly healthy. Why not? Yeah. Why shouldn't we be radiantly healthy? We are. I mean, wild free living animals are healthy. They're running around healthy. Well, why shouldn't we be healthy unless they're, taking in human chemicals and things? So that's why I like the raw vegan movement, because there really is this sense of we're healthy. We're going to make sure we have responsibility for our health, and we need to combine that, the ethical part of caring for animals and the bigger picture with our own health. They go together. And our being healthy is making an effort to be very healthy is really compassionate to animals and to other people. Because when we walk around and we see these people, I mean, they're obese and unhealthy. Aesthetically, it's a downer. I mean, it's like, it's not nice to see it, and feels like it's heavy. It's like when we see people that are like trim and radiant and have this life force in them, it makes everybody better. And it's much better for all of us. I mean, people who are chronically sick, quite honestly, we all have to take care of them. I have to pay more for everything, to pay for the drugs that all these people are taking. It's higher prices for everybody. And then we have to take care of them. I mean, I've seen people many times, the one spouse, maybe the wife, she cares about her health and she's a vegan. And the husband said, well, I want to eat however I want. And so he has a stroke. She has to take care of him for the next 10 years till he dies. And he steals her freedom because he wants to eat how he wants to eat. This happens all the time. And then there's this whole thing like, well, you should be proud to be fat. You should be proud. We should be proud to be this and that. I mean, leave the pride out of it. Pride is the first of the 7 deadly sins. And it's nothing to be proud of. I mean, we say we're proud to be humans. How do the cows feel about us proud humans, that we're so proud? It means I can dominate and exploit. I mean, we should really try to cultivate humility, I think, and live in accordance with the laws of health, which really have a high fiber and compassion and kindness and have relations. A lot of people are unhealthy and sick because they haven't forgiven other people. They haven't forgiven their parents, and they're still angry. Anger will create tremendous toxicity in our bodies. Fear will create a lot of toxicity in our bodies. People are afraid of the sun. I mean, God, I'm out in the sun. People are afraid of carbon dioxide. People are wearing masks. I mean, the worst thing you can do is wear a mask. It's like eating your own excrement. We're constantly getting rid of waste. And you have this dead air space behind a mask. You're rebreathing over 200 toxic gases that the body's trying to eliminate. I mean, all these fear-based things are destroying our health. And then people say, "Oh, I'm wearing my mask to be healthy. I'm taking drugs to be taking drugs to be healthy." I mean, you kidding me? I mean, those are toxic chemicals that are working directly against your body. The whole idea is we should be cleansing. We should be fasting. Maybe do some fasting. Yeah. I did a lot of fasting. I mean, are these people fasting and purifying and eating only really clean food and having water and air, and I mean all these things? We're really called to have a big view. And the pans, a lot of people are using pans, cooking in pans that are leaching metals. Like, we have expensive pans. You can buy surgical steel pans. I've met people that are chronically ill that when they changed their cooking pans, that went away, right? We have to be savvy. I want to close. I know it's getting kind of late here, but I want to, it's a great story from the samurai tradition of the father who had these 3 sons. and they were all studying to be martial arts warriors, and to really live their lives, kind of like I'm talking about, with awareness.
Yeah.
And so he wants to test them. So he calls in the youngest son, and so right behind the door, he's inside sitting in a chair, and he calls in the first son, and right behind the door, he's hired this martial artist master to attack his sons as they come through the door. And so the youngest son comes walking in, and the guy behind the door attacks him, and the son gets hit on the head, knocked down, blood flowing, not good. So, okay. So then the father calls in the second son. The second son comes walking in. The martial artist attacks him. The second son whirls around with lightning speed, blocks the thing, and knocks the guy down. So that's pretty good. He calls in the oldest son. The oldest son walks, before he even gets to the door, he stops. He goes, "Wait a minute. Father, what's going on here? I have a feeling something isn't quite right here." And the father said, "Well, actually, since you ask, I have a guy behind there. I was going to test you and see, if you're, how good you are." "Father, you got to know better than that, So the lesson here is that those with the most training, those who are the most aware, create the least violence. Those who are less training, who are less responsible, less conscious, it's not that they're bad people, they're just gullible. They just don't really know what's going on. They are the ones that create the violence. They're the ones that create the misery because they don't know what's going on. They just haven't taken the effort to train their mind. Their mind goes wherever the media takes them. They believe whatever the authorities say, and they create havoc and terrible disasters. Really, it's only when we train our mind and learn to understand our true nature that we have like you say, our intuition is working and we're trusting ourselves, and then we're savvy and we're less likely to kinds of things that contribute to violence. We won't be easily deceived. Deception is a terrible thing. I mean, when someone is hit or stolen from, they know they've been harmed. But when someone is deceived, they don't even know they've been harmed. You can keep deceiving them over and over again and stealing and harming them more and more and more. And they don't even know. They still think you're their friend, everything. I mean, deception is incredibly insidious.
Yeah.
But the thing you have to understand is that not only is being deceptive, that's evil, but being easily deceived, that's also evil. That's evil. If you're easily deceived, you're evil. Really. I mean, that's something, that's immoral. We have a moral obligation not to be easily deceived. We have a moral obligation. And there's an old saying, you cannot fool an honest man. If we're not honest, we're easily deceived, quite honestly. People who are eating animal foods are not honest. That's why they get sick so much, because they just want to think, well, God gave us these animals to eat. They're easily deceived. They buy into eating animal foods. They buy into taking drugs. They buy into believing in climate change. They buy into all this stuff because they're not honest, really, with themselves. They just want to fit in and trust authority. So we have to understand that we are called to develop intuition and what is called in the Buddhist tradition discriminating awareness wisdom, so we can discriminate, we can see the false from the true. And that is a challenge. It requires a lot of effort. And so but that's why we're here, I think, to make that effort and then do what you're doing, which is to help others create conversations and context to understand these stuff. I'm sorry, I just realized we went over too. Well, I can take a couple of questions if there are questions, maybe, but I should get going pretty soon.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that's going to be very helpful for everybody. So yeah, let's take just a couple questions. Get over into the Q&A section here. Let's see. So Tessa had a question about, so she's asking, so does Dr. Tuttle not believe in reducing your carbon footprint? What do you say about that?
Oh, I don't believe in reducing your carbon footprint. I mean, I don't believe a carbon footprint is this whole idea of anthropogenic climate change. I believed it. Actually, I actually did believe it up until maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And then I realized, wait a minute. I started reading more and I realized, I read a book called The Hockey Stick Illusion. You have this graph, it's like a hockey stick. It goes like this.
Yep.
And like global warming and carbon, all this. And I learned, first of all, be wary of that kind of a thing. That's usually to try to manipulate you to think, oh no, something bad's going to happen. And I realized that there are so many climate scientists who say that's not true. We don't know. I mean, carbon dioxide is actually, you pump carbon dioxide into greenhouses to make plants grow. It creates life. It's life. The idea of net zero carbon, that carbon dioxide is an enemy, that's a satanic idea. It's an anti-life. If we reduce carbon dioxide, I mean, it's so small already. It's like 0.004%. And yet every, trees and plants and fruits, everything, that's all the carbon comes from carbon dioxide. We want more carbon dioxide. I mean, you want more carbon dioxide is much better. You have much more growth. We're a problem too low in carbon dioxide. And there's no link carbon dioxide in here. I mean, that whole thing is a myth. The IPCC, I mean, I've researched this. I wouldn't say this without research. Okay, so the IPCC was put in by the nations, influenced by the club. This whole, they got together. Rockefeller. This is Rockefeller again, wanting to make money and control people. So you got to understand this whole climate narrative of carbon dioxide to reduce your carbon footprint. That's how you enslave people. How do you enslave animals? Right? You enslave them by not letting them move. You can't go anywhere. You stay right here. That's called slavery. So they're getting us to agree to our own enslavement. You can't go anywhere. You can't drive because that's too much. You can't fly because that's too much carbon. You can't do anything because it's too much carbon. And so it's a total lie. There's no relationship between carbon dioxide and temperature. We have to understand that. That's a big myth. And, the temperature is always climate change. I mean, climate change is going on. I mean, Al Gore, I remember in 2006, he came out with his big inconvenient truth, and he predicted that by 2015, there would be no ice caps, that Miami would be underwater. Now he just bought an oceanfront mansion. He's not worried about it. He knows it's a big lie. So did Obama. They know it's a lie. They all know. They fly around in their big jets. Yeah. They don't worry about it. Are you kidding me? Yeah. How can we believe these lies when they know it's a lie and they just laugh at us? They create people like Greta, to scare us. We really got to question. That's all a big lie, the whole thing.
Right.
And it's about enslaving humanity with 15-minute cities and carbon taxes, and which all puts more money and control in. It's about centralizing authority. You can only use this much. You can only, and if you go against it, you can't spend your money. You can't go over there. It's all about centralizing control. Okay, that's enough to say.
Yeah, no, perfectly said. Let's see. So, VG. Oh, I was gonna say, you notice all of these people that are promoting this, they're the ones that support the industries that are destroying the environment in the first place. So they're behind
exactly. I know. And then if you look into so-called green energy, I mean battery, the mining of lithium and cobalt and nickel and all these things and copper that has to go on, and the slavery and the pollution and the windmills killing all these birds and fish and I mean it's devastating. We have to understand. There's a lot more to it. I mean, you need to read my book. There's so much more. We don't have time, but our gas engines could actually. The fuel mixture is way too on purpose because you use a lot more than we would need. You could cars that'll get 200, 300 miles per gallon by just leaning out and changing. It could be done. It can be done. People are doing it. So we have to understand we're being manipulated on all these things. We could use a lot less fuel. They want us to use a lot more fuel than we need to use, but we have to be savvy and understand these things. Do the research.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's see. So maybe one more question. What are what are the top actions we can take in the middle of everything that's happening right now? I guess you did already kind of touch on that. Do you just want to give a few things people can take away?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think the main thing, of course, is to move and really live an organic, whole, plant-based diet, mainly uncooked is probably a really good idea, but you really eat a healthy diet. And be aware of the water. Water's a big thing, and air. Be healthy. Take responsibility for your health, what you're reading, what you're taking in, meditation. All these things, and quality of relationships, and having a meaning for your life. Really connecting with what is the purpose of my life for this incarnation. Why am I here? And do the best we can to fulfill what we feel is our purpose, and connect with creativity. Also, I think that's very important, and take time every day for silent contemplation, however that is, for you, prayer or meditation or inner listening. We tend to be so active and in a way forced into being active all the time, but it's really that's called yang, yang energy, but yin energy, just being able to sit quietly and just be without having to be active, and let things come, be open and be receptive to higher wisdom. To make that a regular practice every day. I think that, be very aware of how you start your day. I think the first hour, for example, the very first thought be one of gratitude, and what can I learn, and how can I contribute, and be grateful for another day, and then take time to listen, maybe do some reading that's uplifting. Connect with nature. Nature is the main source of health. The more we can connect authentically with nature. But what did they do during the pandemic? They wanted people sick, so they wanted us inside. Sun and wind and rain and water and trees. Connect with nature. Healthy food, like I was saying. Creativity. Find creative outlets. Music, art, dance, writing, movement, yoga, the speaking, whatever it is, something that allows you to connect with your creativity, because creativity and intuition are intimately connected, and also with spirituality, which reconnects us with our true nature. Spirituality is everything. Spirituality is it. Veganism and spirituality are the same thing. Ahimsa. There's one life living through all of us. We're not matter. Question all materialism. Materialism is the religion of animal agriculture. It's reducing beings to matter. Anytime that is coming up in your thought, or you see it in the media, deny it. It's not true. We are consciousness. We are infinite life. And remember that, and see that in others. And just send love to people. Walk by and just send love. Send love to everybody. Just, you can sit down in the line at the post office and just radiate love. You don't have to say anything. And the more we do that, the more we just send love out to everyone around us, and feel grateful for this life that we have, we will attract teachers, and we'll attract abundance. But we don't do it for that. We do it to be loving. I'm not liberating the animals because I want to be healthy. I'm liberating them because I want them to be free. Yeah. But the irony is, that's the great thing, is the more you try to be good and kind and loving to others, the more love comes to you. That's why people who harm others, in the big picture, they suffer. So we have to understand that, and not go along with any of these narratives that cause suffering to animals or innocence to people, and be a radiating center of joy and love and kindness and compassion and mercy, and just find our way to do that. That's really what it's about.
I love it. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for all the wisdom you shared today with us. I'm glad that everybody was here to join us, and yeah, I'm just gonna quick pick a winner of the ebook.
Oh yeah,
and the audiobook. Let's see here. Gonna just go through here. It's gonna be. All right, it's Tessa today. So Tessa, let me email me, and I will get you the ebook of 5-Star Salad Revolution, and then we'll get you connected with Dr. Tuttle, and he can get you that audiobook for the World Peace Diet. Okay.
That sounds great. Yeah, I'm happy to, if Tessa would rather have an ebook of the World Peace Diet, she can have that, or the audiobook, either one. No problem. And I want to thank you, Matt, again for the great work you're doing, and thank everyone for listening. And never doubt that who you are, like you said, makes a huge difference. We really do, each one of us as individuals. So thank you for the opportunity, and go forth and multiply the message. And stay in touch. We have a website, worldpeacediet.com, or just my name, willtuttle.com. The new book is Food for Freedom. It should be out within the next one or 2 months. It's at the Book Designer right now, so we'll see.
Terrific.
But thanks so much. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. All those links are going to be in the description box down below, guys. So check out all of Dr. Tuttle's resources. I'm really looking forward to the book coming out. So yeah, we will. I'm sure we'll keep in touch, and I'd love to have you back on once it comes out and maybe talk a little bit more about that.
Great. Sounds good.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.
You.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.
Yeah.
See you next week.